Jamie leaned back in the lounger, the sun warm on her skin and a cool drink in hand. Her backyard oasis was the perfect escape from the grind of daily life. The pool shimmered under the golden rays, inviting her to dive in and let her worries melt away. She closed her eyes, imagining a peaceful afternoon ahead, when the sharp ring of her phone cut through the calm. "Hello. Hey, Jamie. It's Karen." The voice on the other end was sweet but tinged with an unmistakable urgency. Karen was a neighbor who had always rubbed Jamie the wrong way. She was the kind of person who never seemed to take no for an answer, always assuming that her needs should come first. But Jamie had been polite, always keeping a cordial distance. That's how neighbors were supposed to be, right? "What's up?" Jamie asked, a slight sense of unease creeping into her voice as she set her drink down on the table. "Well, I have a bit of an odd request," Karen continued, and Jamie could already feel her stomach tighten. "So, as you know, my wedding is coming up this weekend, and the venue I booked doesn't have a pool, and you know how important it is for me to make everything perfect." Her voice trailed off, as if waiting for Jamie to fill in the gaps. Jamie's eyes darted to her pool. "Yeah, I remember," she said, the unease turning into something sharper. "What's your request?" "I was wondering if you would consider letting us use your pool for the wedding guests. It'll be just for a couple of hours, right after the ceremony, so they can cool off and relax. Everyone's been really excited about it, and I just thought it would be perfect." Karen's words rushed out, as if she were pitching an idea Jamie should already be on board with. For a moment, Jamie was speechless. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her backyard was her sanctuary, her personal space, her place to unwind. The thought of letting someone else take over her pool for an entire afternoon made her stomach twist. It wasn't just the invasion of privacy that bothered her. It was the sheer nerve of the request. I don't know, Karen." Jamie hesitated, trying to find a way to express her discomfort without sounding harsh. "I got some things planned for this weekend, and honestly, I was hoping to relax by the pool myself." "Come on," Karen interrupted, her voice now dipping into a tone that Jamie recognized all too well. The manipulative one. "I understand if you've got plans, but it's just a small favor. And think about how much easier it would make everything for me. I'm already juggling a million things, and you'd really be saving me from a huge headache." The guilt trip was starting. Jamie felt the familiar pang of pressure building in her chest. She was about to give in, about to say yes just to avoid confrontation, but something held her back. She couldn't let Karen walk all over her. "I'm really sorry, Karen, but I just don't feel comfortable with it," Jamie said, trying to sound calm but firm. "I hope you understand." For a long, tense pause, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then, in a voice that was colder than before, Karen spoke. "Well, I just assumed you'd say yes. But okay, I guess." There was a hint of frustration now, almost like she was offended by Jamie's refusal. Before Jamie could reply, Karen hung up. The phone call left Jamie with a gnawing feeling of discomfort. She knew Karen was the kind of person who didn't let things go easily. This wasn't over. But what could Karen possibly do next? The next few days felt like a slow burn. Every time Jamie walked into her backyard, she couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's request loomed over her like a dark cloud. The pool, usually a symbol of relaxation and solitude, now seemed like an object of contention. Jamie tried to push the thought from her mind, but the tension kept building. She hadn't heard from Karen again, and for a brief moment, Jamie allowed herself to believe the issue was settled. But that fragile peace shattered when, on a Wednesday morning, Jamie received another call. She stared at the number on the screen. It was Karen. Her stomach churned. "Hey, Jamie." Karen's voice was almost too bright, too cheerful, as though nothing had happened. "I was thinking about our conversation the other day, and I realized I might not have explained myself well." Jamie's heart skipped a beat. She braced herself. She knew what was coming. "I really don't want to push you, but honestly, it would mean so much to me if you could reconsider." The wedding is going to be perfect, but I just need that little extra touch. I mean, you wouldn't even have to do anything. I'd take care of everything. And the guests would only be in the pool for a couple of hours, tops." Karen's words were smooth, rehearsed, designed to make Jamie feel as though refusing was selfish. Jamie could feel her frustration bubbling under the surface. She wasn't the kind of person to get angry easily, but this was pushing it. Every word out of Karen's mouth seemed to be another attempt to chip away at her resolve. She took a deep breath. "Karen, I already told you, I'm not comfortable with this," Jamie said, her voice firm but controlled. "I've got plans for the weekend, and I don't want to have to share my space. It's just not something I'm willing to do." There was a moment of silence, a heavy pause that made Jamie's stomach tighten. Then Karen spoke again, her tone now slightly colder, more calculated. "Well, if you really feel that way, I guess I'll just have to find another solution. But you know, Jamie, this was a really important request. I can't believe you're not willing to help me out here." There was a sharpness in her voice that sent a chill down Jamie's spine. "I thought you'd be more understanding." The line went dead silent for a moment, and Jamie knew exactly what Karen was doing. She was trying to manipulate her into feeling guilty. But Jamie wasn't falling for it. "I'm sorry, Karen. I've made up my mind," Jamie replied, trying to end the conversation with finality. But Karen wasn't done. The final words were laced with a barely concealed venom. "Fine, but don't expect me to forget this." The call ended, and Jamie let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The unease gnawed at her, but now she felt a surge of clarity. She wasn't going to let Karen win. She was done being nice. It was time for Jamie to take control. The next day, as she sat by the pool, watching the water ripple gently under the breeze, a thought began to form. A twisted, brilliant idea that could both give Karen a taste of her own medicine and reclaim her personal space. What if she turned the tables on Karen in the most outrageous way possible? Her heart raced as she began to plan. It wasn't enough just to refuse anymore. No, Jamie wanted to show Karen what it felt like to be utterly out of control. A grin tugged at the corner of her lips. This was going to be unforgettable. But then, a sudden thought struck her. What if Karen was already planning to come back with some new trick to wear her down? A cold chill ran through Jamie as she realized. The battle wasn't over. Not by a long shot. It was a hot, lazy Saturday afternoon when Jamie's worst fear came true. She was lounging by her pool, finally feeling the relaxation she had desperately craved for the past week. The sun beat down mercilessly, and the water lapped gently against the edges. Just as she closed her eyes, enjoying the solitude, a sudden noise shattered the peace. Laughter, the unmistakable sound of voices carrying from the yard. Jamie shot up, heart racing, adrenaline spiking through her veins. Her eyes darted across the backyard. Nothing. But then she heard it again. Laughter, followed by the unmistakable sound of splashing water. It was coming from her pool. Confused and disoriented, Jamie rushed to her feet and sprinted to the back gate. When she threw it open, what she saw made her blood boil. Karen's wedding guests, all decked out in swimsuits and fancy sun hats, were floating in her pool, drinks in hand, completely oblivious to Jamie's presence. It took Jamie a full second to process what she was seeing. There was Karen, laughing with a glass of champagne in her hand, as if nothing was wrong. Guests were chatting and playing pool volleyball, completely unaware that they were trespassing on Jamie's property. The sheer audacity of it left Jamie speechless. "Karen," Jamie shouted, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. Karen looked up, her face lighting up as if she were genuinely happy to see Jamie. "Oh, hey, Jamie. Isn't this great?" she said, her voice high-pitched with feigned enthusiasm. "I told you the pool would be perfect for everyone. I figured you'd be okay with it, right?" Jamie's hands clenched into fists at her sides, her face burning. The betrayal was palpable. She had made it clear. She'd said no. And yet here they were, treating her pool like a public resource, like Jamie's boundaries didn't matter in the slightest. "You said you were going to respect my space," Jamie snapped, taking a few furious steps forward. "You promised me you wouldn't do this." Karen shrugged, a nonchalant smile still on her lips. "Well, I didn't think you'd mind," she said with a shrug, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "It's just for a few hours, and we're all having such a great time. You're welcome to join us." The words felt like a slap in the face. Jamie's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. Was Karen this oblivious, or was she simply so used to getting her way that she didn't care how Jamie felt? Jamie felt an icy fury creeping up her spine. She wasn't going to just stand there and let Karen walk all over her. She marched right up to the pool's edge, her heart hammering in her chest. "This is my pool, Karen," Jamie said, her voice low and dangerous. "And I don't appreciate you taking over it like this. Get out." Karen's face flickered with something. Maybe surprise, maybe guilt, but it quickly dissolved into an expression of irritation. "Oh, come on, Jamie. Don't be so dramatic," Karen said dismissively. "It's only a couple of hours. The guests are having fun, and it's just a pool. It's no big deal." The nerve of her. Jamie could feel the anger bubbling up, threatening to spill over. She was about to explode when Karen added, almost as an afterthought, "Besides, I thought we were friends. You know I wouldn't do anything to make you uncomfortable, right?" That was it. The mask had slipped, and Jamie saw the true Karen, the woman who saw no problem in exploiting people's kindness and taking what she wanted without a second thought. "Get out," Jamie shouted, her voice rising with fury. "I don't care if this is your wedding day. This is my pool, and you have no right to do this." Karen paused, blinking in stunned silence, as the reality of the situation began to sink in. But just as Jamie thought she'd finally gotten through to her, Karen's lips curled into a smirk. "Well," she said, her tone taking on a smug edge, "I guess I'll just let you cool off in your little pool tantrum. We'll be out soon enough. Don't worry." And with that, Karen turned and walked away, leaving Jamie standing there, seething with rage. Jamie's mind raced, her blood still boiling. This wasn't just a simple invasion. This was a statement. Karen didn't care about boundaries. She didn't care about what Jamie had said, what Jamie wanted. She only cared about herself. And suddenly, Jamie knew. This was no longer just about a pool. This was about standing up for herself. And the only way to deal with Karen was to show her that Jamie's boundaries were non-negotiable. But how? How could Jamie make her pay for this betrayal? The answer struck her like lightning. The sound of Karen's laughter still echoed in Jamie's ears as she stood by her pool, fists clenched and heart racing. Karen had crossed the line, but now Jamie had a decision to make. She could let this moment slip by, continue to be the victim of Karen's overbearing nature, or she could take control. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the pool's stone lip, the water shimmering mockingly at her feet. What would make Karen truly regret this? Jamie thought, her mind spinning as she paced around her yard. A moment of clarity pierced the fog of anger. It wasn't enough to just kick Karen and her guests out. No, Jamie needed to teach her a lesson she wouldn't soon forget. She needed to hit Karen where it would sting the most. The idea, twisted and brilliant, struck her like a bolt of lightning. She would turn the pool into something unrecognizable. She would turn it into a Jello mold, a massive Jello mold. Jamie grinned to herself. The absurdity of it made her feel a surge of power. She could almost hear Karen's voice, tripping with disbelief and frustration, when she would see what had happened to the pool. But it wasn't just about the spectacle. It was about making a statement, about taking back control in the most outrageous, unexpected way possible. The more she thought about it, the more the idea grew on her. How could Karen complain about her pool being off-limits if it was filled with gelatin? How could she possibly keep the wedding guests in a pool that now resembled a surreal dessert? The thought sent a shiver of excitement down Jamie's spine. She wasn't just going to win. She was going to do it in the most spectacular, eye-popping way imaginable. But there was one catch. This wasn't going to be easy. Jamie had no idea how to drain a pool, let alone how to fill it with thousands of pounds of Jello. It was a monumental task, an insane one, even. But the more she thought about it, the more the idea seemed to hold a strange kind of genius. Jamie started researching. She found articles on how to make industrial-sized Jello molds, how to handle the weight of thousands of gallons of gelatin, how to drain a pool efficiently. The more she learned, the more the plan took shape. She'd need to clear the pool, reinforce the lining to prevent leaks, and then slowly, painstakingly, pour in the Jello mixture. If she timed it right, the gelatin would set just in time for Karen's next visit. There was a dark satisfaction in the thought. Karen would never expect this. No one would. It would be her own perfect revenge. Jamie reached out to a few friends, explaining her plan. She knew they'd be just crazy enough to help. Within hours, they were on board, each of them eager to see the prank come to life. The logistics were crazy. The supplies were expensive. But with a team of determined friends, Jamie felt the rush of possibility. It was all coming together. The next day, Jamie set to work. She emptied the pool, the sound of water draining away echoing in the empty backyard. Every second felt like a countdown to something monumental. As the pool floor slowly emerged from the water, Jamie could already see it in her mind. The transformation, the absurdity. Her backyard would soon be filled with a sea of vibrant colors, each layer of Jello more ridiculous than the last. As she and her friends began lining the pool with plastic sheeting to hold the gelatin, the excitement was palpable. But with each layer of preparation, Jamie's nerves started to kick in. What if it didn't work? What if the Jello collapsed under its own weight? What if Karen figured it out before they were finished? The clock was ticking. And just as Jamie checked the time, she heard a familiar voice call out from the gate. "Hey, Jamie." It was Karen. She'd come early, with a mix of curiosity and the same smug confidence that made Jamie's blood boil. But this time, Jamie didn't flinch. Instead, she looked at her friends and gave them a knowing nod. They smiled back, their eyes glinting with mischief. The moment of reckoning was near. "Hey, Karen," Jamie said, her voice smooth, calm. "I was just about to show you something surprising." The game was on. Karen stepped through the gate, her face lighting up with that all-too-familiar smile, the one that always made Jamie's skin crawl. She glanced around the yard, clearly confused by the sight of the pool still sitting empty. The massive plastic sheeting stretched across the bottom of the pool, creating an odd, almost sinister look, and the air was thick with the smell of Jello preparations. "Jamie, what's going on here?" Karen asked, her voice laced with curiosity. But Jamie could see the edge of suspicion creeping into her tone. Jamie didn't answer right away. Instead, she took a deliberate step toward the pool and motioned for her to come closer. "Come take a look. I think you'll find it interesting." Karen hesitated for a moment, her gaze flicking back and forth between Jamie and the pool, clearly unsettled. But then, with a sigh, she stepped closer, a smug expression still hanging on her face, as if she were doing Jamie a favor by indulging her. "You've been acting kind of strange lately," Karen said, rolling her eyes. "I get that you're upset, but honestly, I thought we were over all of this. I'm just trying to make my wedding perfect, Jamie." Jamie's pulse quickened, the rush of adrenaline making her words sharper than usual. "You think this is just about a pool? You have no idea what I've been planning for you." The last words hung in the air as Jamie gestured toward the massive piles of Jello ingredients that her friends had been busy mixing and stirring. The sight was almost absurd. The large buckets of colorful Jello sitting on the edge of the pool, ready to be poured into the empty space. Karen's eyes widened when she realized what was happening. "Wait, you're not seriously." Her voice trailed off as the pieces clicked together. "Oh, I'm dead serious," Jamie said, her lips curling into a mischievous grin. "You're about to see something truly unforgettable." Before Karen could say another word, Jamie and her friends began to pour the thick, gooey Jello mixture into the pool. It splashed and sloshed with each layer. The vibrant colors, electric blue, neon green, bright orange, filling the pool in surreal, undulating waves. As the gelatin started to solidify, the pool's entire atmosphere began to shift, turning from a space of luxury and relaxation into a bizarre, sticky landscape. The smells of fruit and sugar filled the air, making the entire yard feel like a twisted carnival attraction. Karen's expression morphed from disbelief to outrage. "What the hell is this, Jamie? Are you out of your mind? You can't just turn my wedding pool into a Jello disaster." Jamie couldn't help but laugh. The sound of Karen's anger only made her more exhilarated. The pool was slowly filling, inch by inch, with the jelly-like substance. It was becoming impossible to deny the full scope of Jamie's creation. In a matter of minutes, the Jello started to settle, forming soft, wobbly waves in a kaleidoscope of colors. "You wanted to use my pool for your wedding guests, Karen," Jamie said, her voice low but full of satisfaction. "Now you can have it, but I thought I'd make it a little more memorable." Karen's face flushed bright red. "This is insane. You've ruined everything." "Oh, I think you're wrong," Jamie replied coolly, stepping back to admire her handiwork. The pool had transformed into a bizarre, unrecognizable dessert that looked like something straight out of a surrealist dream. "You didn't respect my boundaries, Karen. You made it clear that my space didn't matter to you. So now it's my turn to make sure you remember this moment." Karen glared at her fists clenched. She took a step back, no doubt mentally scrambling for a way out of this mess. But the sight of the pool, slowly settling into its final gelatinous form, was too much to ignore. The air was thick with tension, and the guests were still trickling into the yard, completely unaware of the chaos that was unfolding. "Do you think this is funny?" Karen snapped, her voice now full of venom. "This is my wedding, Jamie. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did." Jamie turned her gaze back to the pool, her heart pounding with excitement. "Go ahead, Karen, but I think you'll find that the only one who's going to look ridiculous here is you." As Karen stormed off to rally her guests, Jamie's smile widened. This was just the beginning. The real fun was about to start. But as the gelatin slowly hardened, Jamie realized something. The battle wasn't over yet. Karen was still dangerous when cornered, and Jamie couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Karen had a trick up her sleeve. This showdown wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Jamie's eyes narrowed as she looked out over the pool, watching the gelatin quiver with every gust of wind. She knew this wasn't the last move in this game. Something bigger, something more unpredictable was coming, and she was ready for it. The evening sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the backyard. The pool was now completely filled with Jello, its wobbly surface reflecting the fading light in a hypnotic swirl of colors. Jamie stood by, arms crossed, watching as Karen's wedding guests began to trickle in, murmuring and laughing amongst themselves. Jamie could feel the electric buzz of tension in the air. Karen had stormed off earlier, but Jamie knew she wasn't done. She hadn't given up yet, not by a long shot. And neither was Jamie. This wasn't just about ruining Karen's wedding. This was about asserting control, about making sure Karen understood that no one messed with Jamie and got away with it. As the guests arrived, their confusion turned to laughter. The sight of the massive pool of gelatin was so ridiculous, it almost felt surreal, like some outlandish prank pulled straight out of a dream. Some guests tried to dip their fingers into the wobbly substance, while others just stared in awe, wondering if it was real. Jamie watched from the sidelines, enjoying the show. She could see Karen in the distance, pacing around angrily as she gathered her wedding party. The tension was palpable. A fight was brewing, and Karen wasn't one to let things slide. Jamie knew that much. Suddenly, Karen approached Jamie, her steps purposeful, her face a mask of barely contained fury. The guests noticed, sensing the confrontation about to unfold, and a quiet murmur ran through the crowd. Jamie stood her ground, refusing to flinch under Karen's glare. "So," she said coolly, "what do you think? Did I do a good job with the pool?" Karen's eyes burned with fury. "This is ridiculous, Jamie. You've completely destroyed my wedding plans. You think this is funny? You think I'm just going to stand by and let you get away with this?" Jamie's lips curled into a knowing smirk. "I think you should have thought about that before you decided to invade my space, Karen." Karen's fists clenched. "You don't get it, do you? I will ruin you for this. You're not going to get away with making a mockery of me like this." "How?" "By making more empty threats. You've already gone too far. It's too late to fix anything." Jamie shot back, her voice steady. For a moment, Karen just stared at her, chest heaving with anger. Then, in a swift, unexpected move, she pulled out her phone and snapped a few pictures of the Jello-filled pool, her fingers flying over the screen. "I'm going to show everyone what you did," Karen said, her voice dripping with malice. "You'll be laughed out of the neighborhood for this. I'm sending these straight to social media. Everyone will know what kind of person you are." Jamie couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, Karen, you're just too predictable." Her smile widened as she took a step forward, eyes locked on Karen's. "You really think that's going to get to me? You really think your petty revenge is going to make me feel bad?" Karen's eyes widened as Jamie continued. "Go ahead. Post your pictures. Make your threats. You've already lost. The moment you stepped into my yard and ignored my wishes, it was over. You can't undo what's been done." Karen's phone hovered in midair for a moment, her thumb poised to hit send. But the moment dragged on, and a flicker of doubt crossed her face. She hesitated. "Are you sure about this, Karen?" Jamie said, her voice lowering, sweet with the venom of finality. "Because once you hit send, that's it. You've shown everyone exactly who you are. You'll be the one who looks desperate. You'll be the one who loses. And the thing is, you'll never be able to take it back." The words hit harder than Jamie had expected. Karen's fingers trembled, and for the first time, she looked less certain of her actions. The thought of being exposed, of looking foolish in front of everyone, was more than she could handle. It was almost as if Jamie had exposed the weakness in Karen's armor, the one thing that could undo all her bravado. For a moment, everything hung in the balance. The crowd watched in silence, sensing the shift. Would Karen follow through with her threat, or would she back down? Finally, with a sharp, frustrated breath, Karen dropped her phone into her purse. "You'll regret this," she muttered under her breath, her words barely audible, but no less threatening. Jamie stood there, her heart still racing, but a sense of victory washing over her. She had done it. She had held her ground. And now, Karen knew, Jamie wouldn't be intimidated. But as Karen turned to leave, her eyes narrowed. "You haven't seen the last of me," she called over her shoulder, her voice laced with venom. Jamie watched her walk away, feeling a chill crawl down her spine. Something in Karen's tone had shifted, and Jamie couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. In fact, Jamie realized this might just be the calm before the storm. The night had fallen, and the backyard was bathed in the soft glow of fairy lights strung across the fence. The chaos of the day was slowly settling into a strange quiet, but Jamie couldn't shake the feeling that something was still brewing. Karen's departure had been abrupt, but Jamie knew better than to believe the confrontation was over. There was a lingering sense of unease in the air, a storm cloud on the horizon that Jamie couldn't quite place. As the guests mingled, enjoying the odd spectacle of the Jello-filled pool, Jamie felt an unrelenting pulse of adrenaline in her veins. The war had only just begun, but she wasn't sure if she was prepared for the storm Karen had promised. Her phone buzzed suddenly, and Jamie's stomach dropped. It was a text from one of her friends. "Did you see it? You need to check Facebook now." Jamie's fingers hovered over the screen as she opened her social media app. The notification was impossible to miss. There, at the top of her feed, was a post from Karen. Her stomach twisted in knots as she clicked on it, dread curling in her chest. The post was a picture of the Jello pool, but it wasn't just any picture. It was carefully staged, framed to highlight the absurdity of the situation. But what sent a cold shiver down Jamie's spine wasn't the picture itself. It was the caption beneath it. When your friend thinks she can ruin your special day, so she turns your wedding into a joke. This is what happens when you stand up to a narcissist. Do yourself a favor. Stay away from people who think they can make a mockery of your dreams. The post was explosive. It had been shared over 100 times within minutes. Jamie's heart sank as she watched the comments flood in. Some supportive, some harshly critical. But what hurt the most was seeing her friends, the ones who had helped her with the prank, suddenly starting to question her actions. Some were even backing Karen. Jamie stared at the screen, the weight of the situation slowly sinking in. The Jello prank, the one thing she'd done to take control, had now spiraled out of her hands. Karen had turned the narrative around, painted herself as the victim, and made Jamie look like the villain. How had Karen managed to turn this on her? The answer hit Jamie like a slap to the face. Karen was good at manipulation. She knew exactly how to twist things to her advantage. She knew how to play the victim, how to make everyone believe her version of events. And now, the town was on her side. Jamie's pulse quickened, and the room began to feel suffocating. She had to do something. She couldn't let Karen win. This wasn't just about the pool anymore. It was about her reputation, her relationships, and her ability to stand up for herself. But how could she fight back against something so carefully crafted? Karen had all the right ammunition. The perfect narrative, the perfect audience, the perfect victim story. Just as Jamie was about to close the app in frustration, she noticed something strange. Amid the sea of negative comments, there was one that stood out. It was from someone she didn't recognize. Karen's not telling the full story. I was there, and I saw what really happened. There's more to this than what Karen's showing you. Jamie's fingers froze above the screen, her eyes narrowing. Who was this person? Why were they speaking up? And what did they know? Before she could react, her phone buzzed again, this time with a call. She answered it immediately, hoping for some kind of clarity. Jamie? It was Amanda, one of her friends who had helped her set up the Jello pool. I just saw Karen's post, and oh my God, Jamie, this is bad. Really bad. I know, Jamie said, her voice tight. But there's someone out there, someone who knows the truth, someone who was there, who saw everything. This could be my chance to fix it. Amanda's voice dropped, low and conspiratorial. You need to find out who that person is. Now, this could be your way to flip the script before it's too late. Jamie's heart raced. This was it. The game had just changed. Karen had made her move, but Jamie wasn't out of options yet. If she could find this mysterious person, someone who had seen the whole story unfold, maybe, just maybe, she could turn the tide in her favor. But there was something else. The feeling that this person might not just hold the key to Jamie's salvation, but also a deeper, darker secret about Karen that no one expected. Jamie's eyes gleamed with determination as she typed a quick response to the comment. Who are you? Please, tell me what you know. As she hit send, her pulse was pounding in her ears. This was the turning point. She could feel it. But who would respond? And what would they say? In the back of her mind, a warning echoed. This could be the beginning of something far more complicated than a simple revenge plot. And Jamie wasn't sure if she was ready for what came next. Jamie's thumb hovered over the phone. Her breath caught in her throat. The comment she had just sent out, pleading for answers, was met with an eerie silence. The air around her seemed to thicken, the sounds of the party fading as she waited for a response. Every second stretched into eternity, her mind racing with possibilities. Was this some kind of prank? Or worse, Had Karen found a way to manipulate the narrative even further, turning even this mysterious person into a pawn? Her phone buzzed, breaking the stillness. A single message had popped up from the anonymous commenter. "I saw what really happened. Meet me at the park by the lake. We need to talk." Her pulse spiked. It was a direct invitation, but there was something unsettling about it. The sense of urgency in the words, the lack of a name, made Jamie's stomach churn with unease. Still, there was no time to waste. This was her chance. She could either let Karen's story dictate everything or find the truth and take control once and for all. Without a moment's hesitation, Jamie grabbed her jacket, and with a final glance at the Jello-filled pool and the party still enjoying the chaos she had set into motion, she slipped out the back gate and headed toward the park. Every step felt like a countdown, each one taking her further away from the surreal world she had created and into something much more real, something unknown. The park was empty when she arrived, the only sound the soft rustling of leaves in the cool night breeze. The lake glistened in the moonlight, its surface rippling like the layers of Jello in her pool. Jamie's heart pounded in her chest as she scanned the area, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow. She was alone. There was no sign of the mysterious commenter. Then, from the edge of the trees, a figure stepped out. It was a woman, tall, with dark hair and a face that seemed vaguely familiar, though Jamie couldn't place it. Her eyes were hidden beneath the brim of a baseball cap, and she kept her distance, watching Jamie with an unreadable expression. "You're the one who commented," Jamie said, her voice shaky with anticipation. "Who are you?" The woman tilted her head, taking a slow step forward. "I'm someone who saw what happened that day. Someone who's been watching Karen manipulate people for years. You're not the first person she's done this to." Jamie's heart skipped a beat. Karen. The wheels in her mind began to turn, slowly piecing together a puzzle she hadn't even known existed. The woman's voice dropped to a whisper. "You think this is just about the pool? No, Jamie. This goes deeper than that. Karen has a way of making everyone think she's the victim, but she's not. She's been doing this to people for years, twisting the truth, making them believe that they're the ones in the wrong." Jamie's breath caught in her throat. A victim. All this time, Jamie had thought Karen's manipulations were confined to petty arguments, but now it was clear that Karen had been playing a much darker game all along. The woman continued, her voice a mix of empathy and warning. "You can't just let her get away with this, Jamie. But you need to be careful. Karen won't stop until she's destroyed you. She'll twist everything you say, everything you do. You're not just fighting her. You're fighting years of carefully cultivated lies." Jamie felt a knot form in her stomach. She had no idea how deep Karen's influence went. But then the woman stepped closer, her face finally coming into the light, and Jamie gasped. It was Amanda. "Amanda?" Jamie asked, astonished. "Why didn't you tell me it was you? Why keep all of this a secret?" Amanda's face softened, a rueful smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "Because I wasn't sure you were ready to hear the truth, Jamie. But now you're in this too deep. I couldn't let you keep thinking it was just about the prank. Karen is dangerous, and if we don't expose her, she'll keep doing this to other people. She's done worse." The words hit Jamie like a thunderclap. There was more to this story than she could have imagined. And now, with Amanda's unexpected help, she had a choice: to let Karen continue her reign of manipulation, or to expose everything, to show the world who the real villain was. "I need to show everyone what Karen has been hiding," Jamie said, her voice steady with newfound determination. "It's time to end this." Amanda nodded, her eyes filled with quiet understanding. "Then let's do it. Let's finally bring her down." As they walked away from the lake, side by side, Jamie could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She had no idea what Karen would do when she found out, but one thing was certain: this fight was far from over. It had just begun, and Jamie wasn't about to lose.